I've always wanted to help people, and I love to sing. When I've been asked what I want to do in the future, and I've said music therapy, no one really knows what it is. It has grown massively over the last 50 years, and I want to show you why it is so important, especially during times of a pandemic. I asked some therapists to tell me more about it.
My speciality is in neurologic music therapy,
brain injury and neurodisability, and paediatric palliative care, so I work in a children's hospice.
In the past I've worked in adult learning disability, adult mental health, prisons.
I aspire to have a diverse caseload. My interests are towards adult mental health.
I work in dementia care.
Work with children with social and emotional issues and children with autism, and working with their parents together.
Before I looked into music therapy, I think I watched a programme on somebody being brought out of a coma using music. I remember saying to my family that I either wanted to be a volcanologist or bring people out of comas using music.
I was massively into music. Music was my life from a young age. My mum was working in a special needs school and she invited me along to just play the guitar. I felt completely out of my depth. The reaction was incredible, not to my playing, but just the sound that was being generated and the communication that came around because of that. And the young adults and children that would start to rest their hands or place their ears and their head on the guitar and feel all those vibrations. I was just like, man, this is amazing.
Prior to training, I was involved with experimental music, particularly free improvisation. And also I was working with adults with learning disabilities. My sense of music therapy was that would be something that would combine those two interests.
Steve has one main instrument. My godmother and dad both died from cancer. I'd taken them to the hospital. I was thinking, whoa, there's no better quality of life offered to them, and they're both musical.
I realised that I wanted to go deeper with music. I wanted to take music to a level that I knew it could go to because I'd felt it take me there.
I just found it really interesting working with children with significant learning disabilities or children with autism spectrum disorders and seeing how they interact in music.
The thing that really intrigued me was working in stroke units, because I'd go into these wards and I'd meet so many different people from different walks of life, and they wouldn't be able to speak, but if I started singing a song they knew, they'd sing.
We ran a drop-in where anyone with a disability could come along and get involved with music and songwriting and playing instruments and stuff. And seeing the impact it had on these people and how it lit people up, and people get up and dance and suddenly completely come out of their shells. They love singing and writing songs.
Really, it was about wanting to use music in what seems to me to be the most powerful way that music is here for. Is extraordinary, and I wanted that to be how I used my music.
Even when you've worked with clients for a really long time, every session can be so different.
It depends entirely on the client group you're working with.
Each individual session is adapted in the moment to that person's needs.
Same client usually have the same structure because it's very important to give some sort of safe containment. We tend to sing the name of the participant, so the therapist's name and the child or the client's name.
So we have a start and a finish, but it's mainly free improvisation and something organic happens.
We sort of create a language together through musical improvisation. They seem very excited, they're moving their body a lot. I might play something exciting and animated. If they're quite calm and still, I might play something slow, follow their breathing.
If I'm working with someone who we're looking at the communication difficulties that they have, I might do a couple of breathing exercises, and then we might do using blowing instruments, so maybe something like a harmonica or a kazoo.
We'd have a variety of tuned and untuned percussion instruments, and instruments that anybody can access, so that any person, regardless of musical talent, can play. So we might have xylophones and drums and hand percussion.
We might tune a guitar so that it rings in tune with the chords that we're playing. So if someone has just got movement of one hand, they can strum along.
People with quite severe complex needs, we would do more sensory-based work. So we've got various instruments from around the world, like singing bowls. With more able groups, we would do songwriting.
We have a singing group. It came from a group that was mainly targeted towards older people with substance misuse problems.
When one is working in the dementia field, a lot of the way that we then will connect with someone is through music from years back. Songs from childhood to when they were young adults to then, if they're able to improvising out of that music, speech may have diminished to such a stage that they're unable to sing along with the words, but they may be able to use gestures, showing that they recognise an emotional aspect of the song.
With COVID, there's been so many things that like everyone's had to adapt to.
Most, in fact, 99.9% of our clients cancelled and went into isolation.
We do a lot of work in schools, and we're doing some work in care homes and in community centres. And when COVID-19 hit, all of those places shut down or were not allowed to have visitors.
The home that I was left working in March had COVID. Half of the unit that I work in died in a week. The loss that person's death impacts on their family, but we are also that person's family in the care home, and they are our family. Carers who've known those people for years and years and years are very deeply affected by their death and were given very little guidance and support by government.
In the latter stages of my training, there's so much commitment to my client base and the work I was doing and the relationships I was building, and considering myself a healthcare professional, to be sort of rejected and considered non-essential was frustrating.
And as I continued working, I realised how important we were, because relatives weren't able to visit.
There's some studies out there at the minute that have resulted in elderly people in care home settings being on medication that they didn't previously need due to the fact they had therapists in their week or in their routine, and are suffering from declining mental health issues due to therapists not being allowed into the setting.
So normally, at the point at which COVID began, I was working in 4 homes. So that meant I had to abruptly end the work I was doing with residents in other homes without going through an ending process, which one would normally do.
And so adapting to going from being able to share instruments, to sing, to play, to sitting in a room with a laptop, trying to engage with someone on Zoom, you can only really see kind of my top half. And we work so much non-verbally and from body language.
The main problem is the delay of a second or so. The second problem is that the sound cuts out for the person who's the quietest.
The couple of times we've trialled it with new clients, when you haven't got that initial tactile thing going on in the room together, it can be quite hard, I think, to build that rapport, because if there is a delay, if their internet does cut off for a second, if it freezes, we tried to work with someone who's sort of highly autistic, and it just sort of stressed him out quite a lot.
We needed to make sure that data was really safe and that people felt comfortable about meeting therapists and practitioners online as well, particularly children and vulnerable adults.
So for a few months, I used to call my clients because everyone don't have the ability to use a computer.
It really depended on whether the client in mention could understand and relate to a computer screen, which is essentially what we became. We stopped being people, we started being screens, and for many of our clients it just wasn't accessible. So using pre-recorded work and setting home programs and things like that was a lot more effective. Because of the dementia, sometimes they don't realise that I'm the real person on the computer, not on the TV screen. I can see residents wandering off.
Some clients will need a lot of support accessing instruments. Singing may also be quite important for some clients, and a lot of these things are discouraged due to the transmission of COVID-19.
We went back into schools from September, and obviously music therapy is now classed as essential work.
So the hospice is still offering face-to-face end-of-life care.
We've also been involved in more practical aspects of end-of-life care, where we have just been asked to sit with someone or to provide support to the care home whilst other members of staff are doing that end-of-life works.
The main difference in terms of the face-to-face work is that we have to be just completely clogged up with PPE, and so again, very different. All the instruments have to be sterilised before and afterwards.
We've had these masks specially made for us. They're singing masks. So they cover your mouth completely, but there's a nice gap there so that you are not choking when you're trying to sing.
So I will normally do all of my music therapy sessions like this. For people with dementia or people who are hard of hearing, they can't see my mouth. So a lot of people lip read as part of how they hear, and this makes it much harder for them to participate.
What was rewarding though was my group work. I designed this particular session as a sort of stimulation session. I will invite them to choose a video and we will pull up YouTube.
We put on an extra session during lockdown, which is still running, which was a musical appreciation. So basically it's getting together on Zoom and playing each other music and talking about it. And that was a good thing. That got a few more people involved in music.
We are adapting our work to the situation, and particularly regarding the setting. So basically my sessions are in the classroom. We are developing a different relationship with staff and teachers, because thanks to that, and they are in the room with me, they can see what I do, and that develop a more awareness of what is my job. I'm not anymore the expert that goes once a week and does a thing in the school, but now I feel more part of the team.
The families who haven't been able to attend regular sessions, we've done our best to try and maintain the therapeutic relationship, whether that's through like regular phone calls to the families and stuff like that.
To keep people in touch, we have done loads of like quizzes, we've brought loads of people on to perform, we've done like some amazing sign language lessons.
Care staff in the home would link their laptop up to a large telly in a lounge, naming them, making sure they knew that it was a personal interaction they were having, not just watching a telly sing-along. And I think we're all very proud as a team that we have kept going and we've adapted.
Personally, I think music therapy needs to be kind of more widely acknowledged and sort of understood.
And I thought it was more hippie things, you put some music on and then people become happy.
It's very difficult to quantitatively evaluate music. It's an ephemeral thing. Without quantitative data and quantitative results, NICE are less willing to look at the efficacy of our work.
I never was aware of it as a profession. When I started looking into it, it seemed like something that was just down south. It wasn't anywhere up north.
So because I came from a community background, I thought music therapy was teaching.
There's not enough general knowledge really around within the public about what it is and how it works.
Music therapy is essentially psychotherapy where your mode of communication is mainly musical activity.
When you look into the effect on music, what it has on people is overwhelming. What it does do for people's mental health, people's creativity.
We know that music is a stimuli that involve most area of the brain. So whatever is the disability, there will always be healthy part of the brain that will be able to process the musical stimuli.
Anyone can participate in music making, regardless of a level of illness or disability or delayed development.
Clapping and tapping, there's something going on, there's stimulation going on, and no matter how small it may look, it's absolutely huge.
As music therapists, we work across the whole lifespan. So in the UK, we've got music therapists working with young children and their families in neonatal units, all the way through to end-of-life elderly care.
What I think is wonderful is that it goes beyond language for all of us.
In music, we can express ourselves, we can express our emotions in a way in which we don't have to use words. And that's really helpful for people who find talking difficult for a number of reasons.
I think it's something that so many people can tap into, and it's so powerful for people who don't have those skills. So people who can't move so easily, people who can't speak.
If you go to a psychotherapist and they go, right, tell us what the problem is, you can feel it in your body, you can feel it you know, sort of cathartically, that resistance to say that first few lines or sentences about why you asked for help. It can feel very exposing and it can feel very intimidating. Music can take that away.
Quite often think about how music is like not so much non-verbal but pre-verbal. So for all of us, our first relationships that we form with our main caregiver and mum or dad or whatever are through sounds. You know, babies can hear and respond in the womb.
You think of how much music influences everyone, how big a role it does play in life. You know, like you wake up, you turn on the radio, you listen to some music to get you in the mood for the day. You turn on the TV and all the little adverts are like got music on because they want you to feel a certain way.
Periodicity, harmony, these things exist in nature. So, you know, without rhythm and pulse and periodicity, we don't breathe, our hearts don't function, the seasons don't come and go. Music harnesses natural phenomena.
We've all got that, and we can think of songs of like highlights in our life or maybe low times in our life. We all associate sound and music to it. So often people work through their problems through a channel of song.
When they listen to music and they're going on a run, it physically impacts them and their well-being is impacted. And then you can translate that to somebody who doesn't walk anymore, and they can suddenly get up and walk with that stimulus of music, and it's the same effect, but it's just hugely kind of impactful for people who really need that support.
If we can all work together to support not just the clients, but all the people that are around the clients, so family, community, school, institution, organization, we can work for well-being of the community, really.
In music, we use a lot of the same skills that we use for building relationships in other ways. Eye contact, sharing, turn-taking, listening to one another, responding to one another.
It's about getting together and playing together, and music's great for that. It's got a different language.
You're there to support people in really quite difficult, dark times, and it can be draining as a therapist. And then every so often you just get these little moments, and they can be like literally seconds long or something like that. But it's just those moments that you think like, this is why I do what I do.
There are no side effects as there are with pharmacological intervention. And if we can get to a point where we can prescribe music therapy instead of potentially harmful drugs, then we will have made the world a better place.
It's just lovely to think that you can have such a positive impact on, you know, people's mental health and well-being during this very difficult time for a lot of people.
I love music therapy as a job because it gives me the chance to really listen to people and get to know those people who find it the hardest to communicate with anyone else and find it the hardest to form relationships.
I feel very privileged to be a part of other people's lives, and you know, to be allowed to sit alongside people in some of their most vulnerable moments.
Music therapy means life for me. It means a better quality of life in terms of how you could impact as a professional in making these incremental changes and helping people cope and manage with their daily life.
I'd probably recommend music therapy to everyone. To see such incredible changes in people and to see the joy and the tears, and it's really heavy and emotional work, and there's just nothing as fulfilling. I have one client who has music therapy once a week, and it's the only thing he engages with all week. It's just something which reaches people at a completely different level.
Music therapy means music creating change, and that's kind of the important kind of driver behind what music therapy is and what its purpose is in the world.
We want to break down barriers and change lives for the better and have a lasting impact on people's lives, no matter, you know, their age, background or ability.